Welcome to the Beyond Divorce Embracing Change podcast. My name is Michael Flores, and I will be your host while we explore the complex journey of divorce with empathy, insight, and practical knowledge. Whether you're contemplating separation, in a divorce, or looking for support post-divorce, our episodes provide expert guidance, stories, and strategies to help you through every step of the process. We are actual therapists, helping clients who sit on our couches every day through their difficulties of divorce. You are not alone. Join us as we delve in and find solutions that give you hope again. We're glad you're here.
This podcast is not intended to replace legal or personal help. This podcast is for informational purposes only.
First of all, I want to thank you all for being here. And in our first episode of this podcast, we're super excited. Today's really going to be about introducing the team to you. So seeing the individuals behind the entire project and what knowledge they're going to bring to all of you. My greatest hope for this podcast and for all of you listeners is really to gain knowledge, to information, and to really get the sense that this is not a lonely place. It can quite feel most of the time, just hopeless. And my greatest hope for you all is that we can give you some hope again, and that this would be a way for that to happen. So we're so glad you're here. Please subscribe so that you can get the future podcasts sent to you right away, so you're always staying in touch with us and staying connected to the information that we're wanting to make sure gets to you. So thanks again for being here. Today, I want to introduce to you Dr. Jacoby Robinson.
Hey, Michael, how are you?
Well, how about yourself?
Man, I'm doing great. Super excited about this podcast. Looking forward to just sharing hope and life with the people who come and watch the podcast, listen to the podcast. And I'm super excited about the information that we have had the opportunity to learn and cultivate in this field. It feels almost full circle to a certain extent because of when you begin in the industry and you learn so much about how you can help people, all you want to do is share it.
That's so beautiful. I mean, the sharing part, and I think that's the part that I'm so glad you brought up. Would you do me a favor, Dr. Robinson? Would you please tell us a little bit more about you and kind of what you bring to the table?
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, I am married.
Yes, sir, you are.
20 years married. We just celebrated 20 years last Saturday.
Congratulations.
20 on the 20th, right? And super excited about being married to my beautiful, wonderful wife, Dr. Christina Robinson. We're actually high school sweethearts.
Wow.
Yep. And I say that's the only thing that I got out of going to the high school that I went to. I was actually supposed to go to another high school. And it is not. I had some wonderful experience. Love my classmates. Super involved and supportive of my classmates. But definitely meeting my wife was definitely something that God had in store for me in going to that particular high school, which is Paul Laurence Dunbar High School, Fort Worth, Texas. All right.
You heard it. You heard it.
Yeah, absolutely. And but I'm originally from Tyler, Texas, and my parents are divorced, and my dad moved to Houston. My mom stayed in the Dallas-Fort Worth area and raised my brothers and my sister here in the area. And I actually got into the field in 2005, around 2005, 2006 in Virginia. Christina was working on residency in pediatrics. And so we were living in Richmond, Virginia, and that's when I kind of found my way to the field of counseling and therapy. I was actually originally wanted to be a lawyer. Can you believe that?
Partially believe that. I'm so glad you made the decision to be a counselor instead, because we're going to get a huge benefit from that. But yeah,
I wanted to be a lawyer, and then I became ill and was not strong enough to prepare for the LSAT and go through the rigorous work that it was going to require to go to law school. And so I started substitute teaching. And in substitute teaching, I thought, perhaps I can be an educator. And so then in that process, that's when I discovered counseling.
So you went from, now we're on a podcast where you're now educating from the counseling that you've done. So let me ask you one final question. What would you suppose listeners can learn from the knowledge you bring?
Yeah, I bring a lot of my personal experience to therapy and to teaching, because what I've discovered is that people are really more interested in knowing how much you care than they are in caring about how much you know, right?
Hold on, say that one more time.
Yeah, people are typically more interested in knowing how much you care, more so than caring how much you know.
I think we're going to have to explore that a little bit later in this podcast.
Sure. I look forward to doing that. And so while I do bring my education to therapy and to platforms like this, I think I bring my experiences just a little bit more. So education and experience, right? It goes well together. And so my passion for seeing people find their best after difficult situations. And I like to take this moment to just kind of put this plug in to say that I'm not pro-divorce, if that makes sense. I am pro-peace, pro-joy, pro-happiness. And because my parents were divorced, I know what that feels like. I know what that looks like from a kid growing up in that. And so, but I do believe that you can find happiness beyond divorce.
Yes, sir. It feels like what you're making sure listeners know, and we'll finish with this statement. Listeners are going to get knowledge from you from your own experiences. They're going to get clinical understanding from the expertise that you've developed over time. And then this teacher that's inside of you, this person who wants to teach and train, they're going to also get the opportunity to learn from the entire thing. I'm so grateful you're here. I'm so thankful, Dr. Robinson.
Well,
Thank
Michael,
you.
that's my best hope. And thanks for, inviting me, first of all, to Brighter Possibilities.
Glad to have you.
And thank you for inviting me to this platform, to this
Yes, sir.
podcast. I'm looking forward. I'm stoked. I'm super excited.
Well, thank you for being here. We'll be talking soon.
Absolutely.
Yes, sir. Appreciate you, as always. All right, everyone. I have Armando Martinez with us now, and I'm going to introduce him to you, and we're real excited to have you. Armando, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me, Michael.
Of course. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, I am a licensed professional counselor. I've been practicing for over probably about 10 years now. I have various experience working in schools, nonprofit work, juvenile justice, and court work.
Wow. Can you go through that list one more time, Armando? This is pretty extensive. Tell us again those areas.
Over 10 years of experience working in the school system, done juvenile justice work, and now currently doing a lot of private practice work and family court work.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So what I want to make sure the listeners get a little bit of is, what can they expect to learn and to gain from your presence on the podcast?
I think based on my experience and kind of my favorite niche of client is working with teenagers, particularly angry teenagers. That is my bread and butter. I love working with those, which I know some people have a challenge working with them. I find it invigorating. It keeps me young. So I always enjoy working with.
Do you think that makes parents feel old?
I don't know
when
if
they
it
deal
makes-
with this struggling teen.
I think what it does is it helps you reconnect with your teen
Wow.
and students. And that's what's important, is that they want to be heard. They want to feel connected. And if we can do that, I think that's essential in building their relationship and making a teenager or anybody really feel heard and be an all-around person.
Thank you so much for sharing that. To hear that, hey, I have a challenging teen, and it's a way I can help the reconnection process. I can show you the ways that you can reconnect with your teen, because it can create amazing relationships. Like, people see the challenge as almost an avoidance versus a building block.
It's an opportunity. It's an opportunity to grow for you, to strengthen your relationship. I mean, I always think about, when I was younger, and I think about my challenges that I gave to my parents, and looking back and saying that actually made us stronger, and we can laugh about it today.
Yep, exactly. So that leads me into a final question. What is your hope for this podcast and for the listeners?
I think my hope for this podcast is that people find something they're missing. People find that hope. People find that they're not alone, and that there is even though there's challenges, this is an opportunity to grow and come out the other side and being just a better, stronger person and really find out who they are, and not just who they are, but become the best version of themselves.
I think we're going to end right there. That's magical. Love it. Thank you for being here, Armando.
I appreciate it. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you all. Thanks, bud. Hello, everyone. Now I have with me Jennifer Blake. She is going to be our next guest here to introduce herself. We're looking forward to seeing you. Jennifer, thanks for being here.
Yeah, no problem.
Glad to have you. Do you go by Jen or Jennifer? What should Jen? We'll make sure to say Jen. Yes, so we'll do Jen. Jen, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm a licensed clinical social worker. I've been practicing for about 17 years.
Wow.
And which feels like a lot longer. I'm married in Arlington, live with my husband, my mom, and my cats.
Mom and cats.
Yeah.
Got it. And what can listeners expect to gain from the knowledge you want to bring to them?
Well, I work with all ages, but I do primarily work with a lot of kids, and I really want kids to be able to express themselves to their parents, to their families, to their friends, and be themselves as much as possible. So it's really fun to see them grow and be able to do that.
Yeah. How will listeners gain from that knowledge that you have that you can bring to them about the children and your hopes for those kids?
I really think that it will help them become more of a well-rounded person.
Yes.
The more they know themselves, the better they can express themselves.
Wow. So just being able to experience those children expressing themselves, especially through something like this with divorce, how important is it for your kids to be able to express themselves? And you can shed some light on how these families and these parents can do the best jobs possible of allowing their kids to express themselves in a way that they can be helpful to their kids.
Exactly.
Beautiful. Beautiful. And so that leads me into a final question for you, which is, what do you hope this podcast can do?
I really hope that it brings attention to an area that isn't looked at very often. People think about divorce and they deal with all the frustration and the stress and the money and all the things that go along with it, but they don't really think about how the relationships need to move and a change to keep going forward, even though you're dealing with a situation that's really rough.
Wow.
And being able to bring information to people that can really learn how to have healthy relationships through such a difficult situation.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, could you imagine listeners walking away from this going, I feel like I actually have some hope. I have some ideas of things that I can do to really get through this process. That's amazing. Thank you, Jen.
It's awesome. And I think it'll be a great way to look at some areas that people don't think about when they're dealing with this. They're like, oh, wait, I never thought about that part. And it really opens up another idea of how to handle things in a different way so it's not so contentious.
Great idea. Exploration of man, Jen, this is going to be amazing. I can't wait to do this with you.
I can't either.
Okay. Thanks for being here, Jen. I appreciate you so much.
No problem. Thanks.
Hello, everyone. I want to introduce to you Janan Marr. I am so excited for you to meet her. I just can't wait for you guys to hear a little bit about what she can bring to the table. And so, Janan, I want to thank you so much for being here.
Yep.
One of the therapists here at Brighter Possibilities, been with us actually the longest. Isn't that correct?
Yeah.
You've been with us the longest of Brighter Possibilities. Yeah. So why don't we just jump into that? Tell us a little bit about yourself, and just start there. Love to hear that.
Well, again, my name is Janan Marr. I am a licensed marriage and family therapist. I have been working with children in various capacities for a little bit past 10 years. Been with Brighter Possibilities for about 6 years. And yeah.
That's awesome. Thank you, Janan, for sharing that. Well, yes, we've had the blessings of having you here and working with the families. And yes, it's just been an honor to have you. So why don't we do this? Let's jump into what can listeners gain from the knowledge that you can bring to them?
Well, my passion is children. I
Yes.
love children, especially the littles, 5, 6, 7, up to probably about 9. I'll do the older ones too, but mainly the younger ones. And it's mainly because these kiddos, they don't get to have a voice when divorce happens or separation happens of the family. They don't get to, things happen to them rather than them being able to kind of create things or make things happen. And so to give them a little sense of control, I help them to be able to find their voices and encourage them to be able to speak up when they do find those.
So I want to piggyback on something you said. Would it be fair to say that listeners are going to learn how to do things for their kids rather than things happening to their kids?
Yeah, and then listen to them too, because kids
Wow.
have great ideas, and they know a lot of them know what they need.
Do you think that would be helpful for listeners too, to hear that part of you going, let me tell you some of the stories where kids actually came up with ways to help these parents move forward in the divorce process? Do you think that would be helpful to the listeners to hear what kids are saying? This is what we need from them, please.
Yes,
Yeah. Okay.
yes, yeah. Because the thing is, I mean, when they can do that, that helps the family function
Yeah.
a little bit better.
And I know we're not jumping into a podcast like full on, but for listeners right now hearing this, would it be helpful for them to try to do that now, or should they wait until they can learn the right ways to do that?
That's a difficult question, just because
Yeah.
you can dip your foot in there, but then maybe you don't know what to do next, and
Bingo.
so you get stuck.
Yep.
So it's always best to kind of be like, this is what I would like to do, and then get more information.
So maybe the listeners will also gain kind of what to do next,
Yes.
possibly. Yeah. Love that. Love that. What is your personal best hope for this podcast?
My hope is that once our kiddos can kind of learn how to speak up for themselves, that we can kind of bring the parents in, and they will really be able to kind of understand that, or they can kind of get insight on how they will be able to help kids navigate through divorce and kind of protect the children from the consequences of divorce.
Wow. Consequences of divorce. There are consequences. Yeah. Positive, negative probably on both sides of that deal. Yeah. So what I'm hearing, I want to make sure listeners hear this, is that the greatest hope you have for them is how to help their children, how to basically help themselves, help their children through this process that can just seem hopeless at times.
Yes.
They're going to be very blessed to hear all this stuff. So thank you again for who you are. And Janan, thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Appreciate you. Everyone, this is a real treat. I'm going to introduce to you Dr. Kaleema Charway, and I'm just so honored for two reasons. Number one, that she's a part of the team, but number two, because of what she can really bring to all of you. We've got to experience the things that she brings to all of us here at Brighter Possibilities, and the knowledge and just the amazement that we've had in learning from her. And so I'm just so excited that you guys are going to get to hear from her and learn from her, and that she's going to be doing this with us. So Dr. Charway, without further ado, let's get into you. Tell us about you for a second. Tell us about yourself.
Well, hello. My name is Dr. Charway. I am a licensed psychologist and a licensed specialist in school psychology. I have a PhD in school and counseling psychology. I graduated in 2013 and practiced as a LSSP. And yes, I earned I'm a licensed psychologist, and I earned that in 2016. And
Wow.
I've been practicing since.
Look at that. And maybe it'll help if I can tell listeners, have you only worked with kids, adults? I mean, like, give us the platform of, like, what have you really seen?
Well, I work with a huge demographic. I was traditionally trained to work with a demographic from birth all the way to geriatrics.
Birth.
Correct.
Like, literally, like, kids born, hey, how do you do a psychological on a, what do you mean?
It is not easy.
Okay, that's a good answer. Yeah.
There are specific measures like the Bailey and that you use to test. I
Wow.
no longer practice with that
Yeah.
with those little itty babies anymore, and so I test from 6 and up now.
Wow. That's just awesome. I mean, what I would never, and I've never known, I've been in the field forever long, and I know that psychologists are used with younger children, but to imagine working with birth, I wouldn't even know where to begin. That's so cool. I wonder if listeners are going to have questions about that. I have a feeling they'll probably be like, wow, because people do get divorced where kids are in utero. People get divorced where kids are just born. I mean, people can get divorced at any timeline in events. What's really interesting is we're noticing divorces with people that are not married. So they've never been married, but they're having divorce issues where they're going into the courtrooms because they're trying to figure out the best interest for kids. And is it okay to say that you actually do the psychologicals for court-ordered evaluations to determine how best to serve these kids in the system in which they're in, and sometimes even the adults, and how they impact the child just with their own stuff? Is that accurate to say?
Yes, correct. I do conduct a psychological evaluation, and
Right.
in the psychological evaluation, we try to answer a couple of main questions. And one of those questions is, what are your overall functioning, or what is your what is your social emotional functioning? What is your psychiatric functioning? Do you meet criteria for a psychiatric disorder? And if you do, do you have an appropriate treatment plan? And if not, what recommendations can we provide?
So with your background being a psychologist and all those things you said, so amazing, what can listeners expect to gain from what you can bring to them?
Well, I think that they're definitely going to gain knowledge of what a psychological evaluation is, but also I have a vast knowledge of different psychiatric disorders, appropriate and evidence-based treatment recommendations based on disorders or just based on symptoms in general, because sometimes we become too focused on the disorder and not on let's treat the symptom.
I'm so glad you said that, because it seems like with divorce cases that happens a lot. The disorder comes up all the time. It's brought up in the court process and in a divorce. And so, but it can have a huge impact on the family system. So I can't wait for the listeners to learn about that from you. So tell us what your greatest hope is for the listeners in this podcast. What do you hope for them?
I hope that they are able to gain knowledge.
Yes, knowledge.
Hope that they're able to gain skills.
Love it.
And I hope that they're able to just have a resource, something to refer to. You know, you're not going, sometimes it's a lot of information to take in at once. So something that they can say, hey, you know what? I think I've heard something at one time that someone said. Let me go back and replay that.
Well, I love that, because what I think is missing from podcasts that I've heard and listened to is the skill part. I think we listen to podcasts to gain knowledge, but we don't hear the skill piece built in. And I'm so glad you said that. And I hope that as we move forward, my greatest hope would be help us help the listeners with the skills that come with understanding what all this is about. So we're so glad you're here as always. Thank you for being a part of Brighter Possibilities. Thank you for being a part of the podcast. Is there anything else I got to thank you for a lot of other things probably too I haven't thought of. Thank you for everything. We appreciate you. So glad you're here.
Thank you.
Thank you. I am just so honored that you all got to hear from the team. What a blessing they've been to the families that they've served here. And the idea of us putting something together to assist all of you is just a joy for us. And we're so honored to do this for all of you. And so I'm going to take the time to answer some questions briefly here that I asked them that I think you deserve to hear from me as the host and as a director here at Brighter Possibilities. A little bit about myself. I've been doing therapy for, fully licensed. I was licensed, completely finished everything in 2013. And so for about 11 years, I actually started Brighter Possibilities right after that for about 11 years. And one of the greatest gifts that's ever been put in my lap was that all the individuals you heard from found their way to me, and I found my way to them through just this miraculous chain of events. And I just can't tell you how amazing it is to have a collective team like this to work with side by side every day. We so much learn from each other, and I'm so honored to have that. I am a father of 3 children. I have been married to my high school sweetheart as well. Met her when I was 18, and we've been together ever since. I'm now in my 40s. And marriage is a huge part of identity. It is a huge part of my own growth as a person. We hope to be the best counterparts for one another. And so when divorce happens, it is a extreme, huge life event. I think we make decisions in life all the time. And one of the biggest decisions we have happen with a partner. They happen with who we marry, the children we have, right? The jobs we take, and they all impact family. And so one of the things I want to say is a good acronym to remember I heard from a priest once is forget about me, I love you. What a great way to remember family. Forget about me, I love you. And keeping that I love you in everything you do is so important. So what do you need to know about me is everything I do with love, and the greatest love that I can offer. What do I hope listeners can get from this, and what I hope you can gain from the conversations is really the same thing as Dr. Charway, really like all of them said, is gaining, number 1, the knowledge, number 2, the skills. My greatest hope for you, more than anything, is that as you hear things, if you find yourself stuck in any part of the process, you know that there's something and there's people out there that are designed to guide you through it. And I just hope that listeners find a way to say, I'm not alone, and find a way to say, I can have courage now. Like, they don't have to be scared of a process they don't understand. So my greatest hope for you is that you get information to help you feel that, sense that, you gain skills, but you also learn enough about yourself to know where you need the help and where you can get that help. And so that's a hope I had for you. The biggest and greatest hope for this podcast is what I've already mentioned. But on top of that, my greatest hope is that you just know that there's people out there that love you. And we love to do this. We love to be here for you. We cannot wait to get into some of these deeper topics and get you the information that you've probably been seeking out for a long time. We're so thankful you're here. We hope you subscribe. We'd love for you to subscribe to us, like our page, subscribe, all the things that come with us being on a podcast so that you can continue to get the information that you're seeking. And we can't wait to hear from you. Thank you so much.